Notts County Talk. Again, we've got another preview over this busy Easter weekend. The last preview we did, we weren't so hopeful. I think both of us predicted a draw, didn't we, George? And next thing you know, we've gone and, after a shaky 20 minutes, beaten Wrexham 1-0 at Mead Lane. So, very, very good stuff. Thank you to everyone that's joining us. You'll probably have seen we have a guest with us this evening. We like to get a guest on most shows. And obviously, if you're on Twitter or on social media, you'll know Notts County Stats and the great work that they do, posting everything we need to know about the opposition and about Notts. So we're gonna get Richard in. So we'll bring him in now, and he's gonna talk us through our opponents for tomorrow.
Hi guys.
How you doing, Richard? Thank you for joining us.
That's all right.
No, it's great to have you on. We've been excited to do this one. We've obviously seen a lot about you on Twitter, so I know we're excited about it, and I hope a couple of our subscribers are excited about it as well. So
no, it's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, we'll kick it off then from obviously the Wrexham game. Good performance, wasn't it? Obviously, shaky start, but we sort of grew into the game a little bit, didn't we? So what did you
exactly
make?
That? Yeah, no, you're dead right. And the start was the worry again, because it's been like that for quite a while. And after the first 15 minutes, I think many of us were probably sat there looking at a screen thinking, blimey, this could be a cricket score. But, fair play to them, to the Notts guys. They stuck it out, they dug in and eventually grew into the game, like you say. And there were a couple of really good performances that were probably unexpected as well, in particular Adam Chickson, who I felt actually had a fantastic game. I don't know where that guy's been hiding all season, but it was great to see him come out and perform the way that he did. And I would say that his performance was actually one of the influencing factors for the win as well, because he was absolutely solid, and the attitude and the determination that you saw from him for the whole 90 minutes, seemed to be a precursor for what happened later in the game. Another great performance from Mark Ellis as well, who got the goal as well, and him and Rawlinson, Connell sort of linking up together for the goal there. And again, from a decent delivery from a corner, which we've not seen a great deal of throughout the season as well. So, definitely, it's one of those things, isn't it, where you're wanting to see the team put in that kind of performance, especially that came as the game went on. But we've got to start seeing that, game after game after game, because it's the consistency now for this last dozen or so games that's going to see us over the line if we're going to get there. And, you look at other teams that are around us, Hartlepool, Stockport, etc. They're very consistent. They're always, it's one of those things. And we still need to be creating more. I mean, that Wrexham game, they did us on XG again. We scored with the only shot on target from 2 yards out, So, great win. But, let's not get too carried away. There's still a lot of work to be done, but we'll take the wins where we can at the moment, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I want to go right back to what you said at the start with Chickson. I think that's the first bit of influence we've seen from Birchnell, because I think if that side's picked by Ardley, I think Chickson is devoid of any confidence. Well, it wouldn't be picked by Ardley because Chickson wouldn't be in the squad. Yeah. I think that's the first thing we've seen is, with all respect to Chickson, how poorly he played in the games before this. To then put that performance in, there's no other explanation than that's Birchnell coming in and saying to him, look, you're a good player. You've played in the Football League for a number of years, international. I think recently, first international make of the season, he was marking Riyad Mahrez, wasn't he, in a game against Algeria?
Absolutely, yeah.
He's obviously a decent player, and I want to see. We said that, didn't we, George? We said Birchnell's got to come in, and he's got to tell these players they are good enough.
What a time for him to step up as well. Filling in for a centre back when obviously we've got Turner, who's injury prone as it comes, so it seems of late. We've got Lacey, who's injured at the minute, and McCrory as well, who would fill in at left centre back. So what a time for him to step up into that position as well.
And they targeted him as well. They did, because there was early on in that spell, a ball came in the box from a free kick, And I think they had 3 men on Chickson, and he ended up nodding it back towards Slocum. Well, instantly, I was thinking, hang on, they've worked this out, that we've got what we all thought was a low on confidence fullback playing at centre back, and actually ended up being one of the best. So I think you're spot on with how he sort of set the tone for the rest of the side. But
no, definitely, and I think that might be something that's probably transferred from the training ground as well, because I think Ian Birchnell mentioned that there's been 1 or 2 players in training in the short amount of time that he's had them that he's thought, oh, hang on a minute, they look like they're picking it up a bit, and maybe he's one of them. And if that's coming from the training ground as well, then hopefully that's going to filter through to the rest of the squad. And we can see a bit more of that from some of the other fringe players as well. It begs a question about formations moving forward as well, because that 3 at the back with Chickson there actually was pretty good, and then we've got people at the moment forgetting the injuries, and you consider, and I know he's one of your favourites as well, now we've got Dion Kelly-Evans, who's going to be sat on the bench thinking, unless he plays a 4 at the back, I ain't getting on. And that's something else that really makes it interesting now, going into these final stages.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we were worried with the 3 at the back that we only had sort of 4 centre backs that could play that formation. Well, all of a sudden now we have 5 players that can play that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, in the past few weeks, I feel a lot more comfortable with this 5 at the back. I think we're playing better under it. Yeah, we had that poor game against Yeovil, I think it was, in that formation, but actually it seems to be working for us. So I'm happy for that to stay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we move on, just bring this up on the screen. Good work, Richard. So people really appreciating what you're doing on Twitter. It's really interesting because you don't usually get that sort of in-depth stats, do you, George, for teams at our level?
Yeah, just about to say, at our level, you never see anything like that. So to be able to just obtain it so easily from obviously your Twitter and your website, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
something me and Tom use quite a lot, actually.
No, that's good.
100%.
Yeah. So good.
Back onto the game then. So when sort of in that short period when Knight and Roberts came on the pitch, what sort of impact did you see instantly there? Because the game changed then, didn't it?
Absolutely, and it's all about having the runners again that we haven't had for most of the season. I think Wes Thomas was one of the most underrated players that we had at the club, because he used to make goals out of nothing. I mean, last season, there were a couple of goals that if it wasn't for his running and getting in behind down the channels and what have you, we could have ended up losing games. But he created goals out of nothing, and we've not had that at all. It's been a case of the ball being lumped up to, or passed through, hoping that Kyle can do something with it. And Kyle's not been getting any change out of anybody this season. So to get the goals that he's got without having a Dennis or a Thomas alongside him is unbelievable, really. But what now with Knight and hopefully Callum back as well, and hopefully another game or so, Callum's going to be fit for 90 minutes a game for the rest of the season. It just gives us so many more options, and it is those runners having that pace and people that are going to run at the defenders as well. There's 2 players there that are going to scare the life out of fullbacks and centre halves if they get the chance. And I think you mentioned it, Tom, when I watched your video after the game, the one that you had Holly on, and you mentioned, I can't remember if you were talking about Callum or Knight, but both of them did exactly the same. Within minutes of being on, they'd created a chance for themselves, had a shot, okay, off target or whatever, but it was chances or that we created that we just haven't been creating previously, and that's the key thing, because that's what we've been missing.
It's worth mentioning as well. I think it was a deflected shot that was worked between Knight and Roberts that led to the corner, that led to the goal.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, yeah, no, definitely, and you could see as well. I honestly believe that the confidence came flooding back in to the players on the pitch as well. As soon as when Callum came on the pitch, again, you could just see there was a bit of confidence. Heads were a little, shoulders were a bit higher, within the players on the pitch. And I do think he's that kind of guy that can have that kind of impact. And he's where we could have been this season if he'd not been injured.
Yeah,
it's a shame, isn't it, really?
I think we got the sniff of that at the start of the season when we sort of ripped Barnet apart in 30 minutes, and I've watched all of those back, and he makes pretty much every goal in that, and he scores one. But as funny as it is, we're calling the Geordie Messi, like you're saying, it's effectively like Barcelona not having Messi on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the best player, it's the most creative player on the pitch, and to lose him, and like you say, the confidence just came flooding back. We've got a question for you, Richard, that's come in. So, say we played a midfield three. What do you think is currently the strongest midfield three?
Well, again, it depends. All depends, I think, on the formation, doesn't it? I mean, there's a lot of people that really aren't keen on a Doyle, Reeves, O'Brien midfield three. For me, 2 out of those 3 would always be first players on my timesheet, and I'm probably going to get a load of grief for this, but I like Michael Doyle. I've always liked him, regardless of what people say. I don't think he's negative at all. I think he's always got his head up. He's always looking for that early pass, and the reason he's not been able to do that for a lot of this season is because, like we said about not having those runners, not having the people getting in the positions that he needs them to be and to be able to spray those balls out to them, and that's why some of his plays looked a bit negative. But he's better for us in that position, just in front of the back four, I think, and then with a couple of guys either side of him. Jim O'Brien for me would be starting every game, because I just think he's the kind of terrier that you need in the midfield there. I'm not keen on him out wide. I prefer him when he's in the middle, or just sat in front of the middle two, in that gap between the midfield and the forward line. So definitely 2 out of those 3. It all depends if we're going for a 4-3-3. It's a difficult one, because you've got your Enzios that you're going to have in there, and again now with Callum coming back as well, because he can play wide in the midfield for you as well. It is a difficult one, and thankfully I'm not the manager and don't have to make those decisions. But you can't. I don't think there's room for a Doyle, Reeves, and O'Brien in the midfield 3 together. I really don't. 2 of them, yes, and if I was going to choose 2, it would be Doyle and O'Brien.
Yeah, O'Brien for me. First name on the team sheet, George.
Yeah, I agree. I think O'Brien's been class. And it's interesting what you say about Doyle as well, not having the runners, because obviously that probably is a big part of his game, taken away. And when you do look at it a bit deeper like that, I suppose that does take an element of his game away, doesn't it? So it does make it difficult for him. But what are your thoughts on Reeves, just quickly before we move on?
Those who follow me on Twitter will know that I'm probably not his biggest fan, and I don't want to be negative about the guy. He's obviously a decent footballer, and he's obviously got something about him, but whether it's a case of he's just not been played in the right, and to be honest, as the game went on against Wrexham, he kind of grew into that more, and we saw more of what he's about. But prior to that, I don't know. He's to me, he loses possession quite a lot. I was a bit concerned in one of his interviews not too long ago. I think we were talking about attacking intent and his part to play in this. I think he was being asked in an interview, and he said, "Well, that's not why I've been brought here." So he was obviously brought into the club as a defensively minded midfielder, and I just feel that added to some of the negative play that we've had and the lacking creation of chances. Don't get me wrong, he's scored 4 goals and made a couple of goals, and none of them have been tap-ins either, have they? So, he's definitely contributed. but I don't know. He's got a little bit of a way to go to convince me at the moment, the way things are, and I hate being negative about anybody, and I'm not being negative, but you know, if it was me, I'd be, you know, a bit like this, whether I was looking to put it in, you know.
No, it's a fair assessment. It's fair, you know. We're very up and down about him. Like you say, the 2 games before Wrexham, he was quite poor, wasn't he? Really in possession.
Well, I would have shot you. Dribbled the ball into our own box, and then
Exactly.
But then you get games like there was. I can't remember the opposition. He gets the assist for Eli Sam for one of the goals.
Yes.
It might have been Halifax. I don't know. And it's an unbelievable assist. So he's got flashes. I think if you're going to get the best out of him, I think you give him a bit more license to you don't constrict him to a defensive position, because he's got the most. He's got like all these contributions, assists, goals. Good player, but I think maybe Berkshire could use him a bit differently.
Well, I think just one more thing on that, if it's okay. In the Wrexham game, not having Doyle there and seeing having Jim sort of literally just a little bit advanced of Reeves in the middle of that midfield. Actually, once they got into their stride, that actually worked really well, and we saw a much more positive player in Reeves than we have done in the past. So, you know, like you say, there's definitely a player in there.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Right, let's go looking at the opposition. And so, Woking tomorrow. Notts currently 5th, 49 points. Woking 18th on 31 points. Now, I'm sure you've got some stats and expected goals, which you'll come on to in a minute. I'm just going to throw a few in there. So, both played 28 games, Notts and Woking. Woking have scored 26, very low. Only Barnet, I believe it is, have scored less. But they've conceded 31, so they're not great attacking wise, but defensively, you know, that they're up there with sort of how many of the teams above us are conceding. So they've sort of got a bottom of the table attack and a top of the table defence. 2 wins in 9 in all competitions. Obviously, when we had our shocker against Hornchurch, they also had a shocker against Hereford. And I actually heard their manager in the interview absolutely ripping into the players, saying he took them to Wembley on the Friday to have a look around the outside because they weren't allowed in, and basically said, your job is footballers, you could be doing your job on this pitch in a few weeks' time. And basically he said they were gutless and spineless and didn't perform for the club, which, you know, if you're taking them to Wembley, and some of those will have never been there, how much you need to get them up for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So on paper, it never is an easy game against Woking, but obviously I've not looked this far ahead as the Woking game. Actually, they're not as high or as in as good form as I thought at the start.
No, I think they're 18th in the league. They're about 18th in the recent form tables as well. And there was one really interesting thing that I've seen is that a vast majority of the goals that they've conceded in the last 15 minutes of each half. So when they're scoring early on in each half, but then they're conceding a lot that last 15 minutes of the first half, last 15 minutes of the second half. So, you know, I think one thing that Notts do have in their favour, whoever they play, is that there's still quite a high level of fitness within the players that get on there. You know, I know we've seen the likes of Ruben struggled a little bit to do 90 minutes and what have you, but generally we're a pretty fit outfit as a team. And you know, we've seen with some of the late comebacks as well in recent games that we're dangerous. We're a lot more dangerous in the latter stages of a game than we used to be. I mean, when at the beginning of the season, we were always the fastest team out of the blocks. You know, we were knocking on the door. Forget the Dover game, but you know, from the was it the Altrincham game or the Wilson game? You know, after that, you know, and then the Maidstone game, albeit we lost, but the Barnet game, you know, all of those games we were out the traps, you know, and looking to get a good early lead. And that all kind of stopped and fizzled away. And then we've been relying on the odd goal or the odd 2 goals, you know, right in the latter stages of games but, you know, from a positive point of view, we've got the fitness to be able to do that. So, and I see very much the same for tomorrow's game as well. I think it's going to be cagey. It's, regardless of where they are in the league, everybody seems to, or most teams seem to get themselves up for it when they're playing Notts, and I think they're going to give us a good run for their money tomorrow, and I don't see a lot of goals, and I only see one goal in it. A 1-0 or 2-1. Possibly a 0-0. It's not going to be. You watch tomorrow, we'll end up winning 4-1 or something silly like that. But I've said all that, but I just can't see it. And I'd love to be wrong, but I think it's going to be a close call. And if we are going to come away with the points, again, it's going to be something, late stages of the game. And it's going to be by a goal.
Hartlepool away at Bournemouth. Not easy. Bournemouth. Who did I say on Twitter? Brandon that's watching. Brandon Chambers is put it on Twitter how I think they're unbeaten in. I think it's one loss in 10, but 9 draws. I think it is. Which doesn't tell the story we drew after coming from behind. So not an easy place to go for Hartlepool, and Bournemouth did you a win. Sutton away to Solihull. Again, we know Solihull is not a nice place to go. Stockport home to Bromley, probably the easiest of the fixtures for the teams around us. But Bromley have Michael Cheek, who loves to score, and then Wrexham Torquay. So at the least, a side around us is 100% guaranteed to drop a point somewhere because of Wrexham and Torquay. I think we now need to stay on, because the longer we stay on, the more teams will drop off. I think you might play 2 or 3 more games and all of a sudden Wrexham are gone out of the race, or keep going for another 3 or 4 or 5 games and you might see, I don't know, Hartlepool start to drop off, because we've got massive amounts of games. Tomorrow, if we can win, I'm liking the look of the fixtures. I think Sutton away at Solihull. A lot of Sutton fans saying now that actually their side it's visible that they're playing to keep the unbeaten run going and not actually to win games.
They recorded their lowest ever XG in the game on Friday. I think they had 1 attempt on goal all game, proper chance on goal all game. And this is a team that had been creating chances for fun, previously. So it's interesting because when I ran the stats on predictions and things, I couldn't see where they were gonna drop off. And the thing with Sutton is I think their performances haven't actually been as good as their actual results. And it only takes them to lose someone like a Harry Beautyman to an injury or a 3-match suspension or something like that, and that could completely derail them. But then again, whereas then you look at Hartlepool and you're talking about Hartlepool might be able to drop off or whatever, they've been the most consistent team all season. You watch, you look at their XG and expected points and whatever, you compared to their performances and what they're actually achieving, and you look at the track of those 2 lines, and there's nothing to separate them. They have been bang on, solid, consistent all season. I don't think it's title winning level, but it's potentially top 3. The way that they're going, and so it's like you say, a win tomorrow. We've got Hartlepool coming up, so Hartlepool away as well. So we really need that 3 points tomorrow, definitely.
George, do you remember Hartlepool away last year?
Yeah, dismal day. We got drenched, didn't we, as well? Getting from the car to the stadium, because we parked a little bit further away, didn't we? We got drenched. It was wet
the whole day. It only rained. Only rained from the car to the ground. That's it.
And it proper rained as well. It wasn't spitting it proper in the face.
What did we do? We paid for the wrong car on the Ringo app.
Yeah. Tom paid for parking and paid for his car instead of mine.
My car's back in Nottingham. Shocking. Awful. So let's hope for a better one. But we're briefly talking about this before we came live. Let's have a look now, because yes, Notts still have a fair few games to go, but there are teams that Hartlepool that have 9 games left. So we'll start with you, George, and the running. How do you see it? What do you see now? What do you see going on?
It's difficult to call, isn't it? I think you look at Notts' inconsistencies. I think it's sort of, I suppose I could be wrong, but it sort of corresponds with injuries. I think when you look at the injuries that we've had left, right, it seems to be a different injury every week. I think that does cause problems within a squad. So I think if we can start seeing everyone gradually sort of come back for the running now, I think we could have a really good running. Sort of like last season. I mean, I know we talk about it all the time, especially me. I think if last season would have finished, we'd have been right up there, maybe top. But you've got other players in there like Roberts. We're obviously seeing Knight now as well, and we saw the impact that those 2 players had in the final sort of 15, 20 minutes of the Wrexham game. So if we can see those 2 combining with the likes of Wootton, and then you've got Knowles in there as well, Rodriguez, even Sam. I think Sam's a good player. I think if we can see that and it starts to work together, and we can sort of stick to or see more of a direction from Birchnell, if he sticks to a certain shape and like all the players start to get used to that, I think we could have a really good run in. I do. I mean, I'm always positive anyway because I am a Notts fan. I always think that we can do well. I think I've never suggested that we're going to lose in a preview or anything like that. But I do see us having a good run in. I really do. I just think we've got to snatch it now and run with it.
Yeah.
And before I go on as well, even if we don't and we manage to stay in the playoffs, we even in our inconsistent times this season, we have done well against teams around us. Like I think the only team we haven't beat is Hartlepool. If I'm are sort of in and around the playoffs. So I think if we do get in the playoffs, that could play in our favour.
Yeah. I mean, there's 91 points available, I think, for Notts to get. Well, not available. We can get 91. I think I've looked at the fixtures and I'm thinking maybe 74, 75. The way we're playing, I expect us to be around there. If we can get 74 or 75, that would mean Sutton can only get 13 points out of the remaining 36, which based off how they're going, it's not impossible. The trouble is now we're at the stage where, like you said, Richard, they only had 1 shot, I think, on goal last game, but they still picked a point up. Every point they pick up now is a point closer to us not catching them. Because the way I look at it, teams around are doing well. Really, it's in our own hands. It's just Sutton now. It's just Sutton. We can catch up with the other teams. We've got them to play. It's just whether Sutton will fall off, and I think they might. How do you see it panning out?
Well, I've looked at it from 2 ways because obviously I posted something a few days ago where I did a sort of statistical analysis of how the season might pan out, and it still came out, with Sutton quite clearly still managing to take the title. But, I see, in that I saw Stockport actually coming quite close as well. And obviously the recent signing was something that's going to give them one hell of a boost. But the thing is they create a lot of chances. And Stockport a little bit like us, but in reverse, the other way around. They had a period a few games ago where they went, sort of 4 or 5 games without scoring a goal. And I was talking to Stockport fans that I follow on Twitter and what have you, and they were like, "Oh God, we're dreadful. We can't hit a barn door. It's terrible. Just before we played them, oh, you're killers. We're rubbish. We won't score. And this, and of course, I think last game we played them, and then they actually scored, and it was offside. And they were all celebrating like mad to start with because it was the first goal in about 350 minutes or something silly like that. But for them, the good thing for them is when you're creating a lot but not scoring, so you're having a bit of a barren spell, that bad spell's still a good spell because you're creating a lot. They were still getting 0-0 draws and what have you, So that was their bad spell. but they were still creating a lot. And now they're taking the chances again. And that's why I can really see them having a strong finish to the season. Not to have been the other way around. You know, you take the early part of the season out of it, you look at us more recently, and it's been the other way around. We've not been creating the chances, but apart from the odd game, we've still managed to get that goal that was needed to get us the points or get us the draw or whatever. You know, the win on Saturday, our only attempt on target out of 6 attempts on target all game, you know. So that's the other way around. And the problem with that is it isn't sustainable. So, you know, like you said, George, now with, you know, Lewis Knight looking lively, Cal looking like he's getting back to fitness. You know, we've got another dimension there up front now that will give us that opportunity to create the chances that we so desperately need to create. So yeah, going back again, Sutton for sure, they're going to be up there. They don't need, you know, they've got the benefit at the moment of being able to lose a few points, a couple of games here and there, and it's still not impact on them too much, you know. They've got games in hand over Hartlepool as well. You know, I think Hartlepool will continue on the trajectory they're on, which means that they're going to be around the 75, 76 point mark, which potentially is going to be good enough for a top 3 finish.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, guys, that top 7 or 8, or between 2nd and 8th, there's not going to be much in it, you know. We're only talking a few points going to separate those half a dozen teams, and that's where, you know, the guys have really got to step up now on the pitch, and some of that consistency that we've been talking about, and that creativity has really got to come to the fore.
I don't know. So I don't know how, if you've got this to hand, probably not, but it'd be interesting to know how many teams have been promoted that didn't finish in the 2nd or 3rd spot.
Yeah,
because
that's interesting. Yeah,
you've got that extra game, and we've said it before. If not don't finish in that 2nd or 3rd, you're potentially looking at, we could be playing to get promoted Wrexham, Stockport, and Hartlepool, and we've got to beat all 3 within the space of 10 days.
Don't forget Chesterfield in this as well, you know, because they're sneaking up there. They really are. And again, they're creating a lot of chances. And you know, their trajectory is very sustainable as well at the moment. So they're a bit of a concern as well. So it's not going to be easy, is it?
No,
it's not going to be easy.
It never is though, is it?
No.
No. So, tomorrow's a huge game. But Richard, Sunday night, really appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Appreciate you asking me on. It's been good.
Some fantastic insight. Gives us a bit more in-depth analysis of the games with the stats. It seems like in the comments a lot of people have enjoyed you being on. If you have, just leave a comment or message Richard on Twitter, Notts County Stats, and Richard will let you get off, and hopefully we can get a win tomorrow.
That's brilliant. Thanks for your time, guys.
Cheers, Richard.
Okay.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Right, George. Team news. Any team news coming in? Now, we've had a message on Facebook. I'll let you go into that message.
Yeah, so I post some of our content in groups on Facebook tonight. And some relation to Cal Roberts is sort of saying he's not going to be starting this game. Whether it be true or not, you know, you can't really say for sure. So it should be interesting sort of going into the game. I think it's the right decision anyway, to be honest with you. I don't think we should rush into starting Cal Roberts. I think, you know, he's a player, I think now that we need to just give him maybe 20, 25 minutes towards the end of the game to bring him on, get the minutes into his leg, and also change the game a little bit if needs be. But obviously, Birchnell dropped a little bit of news after the game on Friday against Wrexham, saying that Effiong is more than likely going to be going back to, who is it? Stevenage is out, isn't he?
Yeah, hasn't hit the ground running yet.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's another player gone. But, I mean, that's on top of Matty Wolf as well, who he's got an injury long enough to sort of put him out for the rest of the season. So he said last week as well. So, you know, that's another 2 players gone. Effiong, you know, he never really got going, did he? And I think he sort of stands in the way of Sam. And for Sam being our player and someone that there's a little bit riding on it because he was signed in the manner that he was. So for me, it was an investment. Where Effiong's less of an investment for the club. So I think for Sam to potentially get more of a chance to prove himself and become a better player, I think it could be a good thing, especially with Knight now as well available. Yeah. But we've obviously got, the injuries of Doyle. You've got Lacey, McCrory, Turner's injured as well. So, a long list of team news there, really. So plenty to contend with Birchnell.
Now, we argued our lineup quite a lot this afternoon, didn't we? And we've sort of got a bit of my choice and a bit of George's choice in there. So it's a 3-5-2. We'll call it a 3-5-2. And it could be a 5-3-2. We'll go 3-5-2 just because of who we've chosen sort of as the wingers, the wing backs. So Slocum in goal. Obviously, fantastic performance. Kept us in it. It could have been 2 or 3-0. Like Richard said early on in the game. We'll go Rawlinson, Ellis and Chickson. I think you have to reward Chickson with how he played. Now, I don't know what fitness-wise would be like after not playing at all for so long. Will he be feeling the effects? Will he be quite sore? I don't know. But I think for a player that's clearly a confidence player, you can't drop Chickson. So Chickson, Rawlinson, Ellis. Rawlinson obviously got the assist. Ellis. And to boil it down, they got a clean sheet against a very good side that were unbeaten in 7. So gone to the midfield. Sort of a midfield 4, isn't it, George?
Almost, yeah. Almost.
So on the right, we're going Enzio. We're saying a 3-5-2 just because he can be a bit more attacking in that. Reeves and O'Brien central, and this is where we argued a bit, but George came out the winner, threatened me a little bit. Miller on the left.
Yeah,
you like him, don't you? You like him?
I do. Yeah, I think Miller's is a little bit more assured. I think not. It's hard to say because I think Barnett on his day he is the better player, but I do think sometimes his decision making is a little bit not on the button. Where I think Miller's a little bit more assured going forward. He's more inclined to pick a pass than he is to take a long range effort, and I think that sort of lets Barnett down sometimes. So I think for this game especially, because it is a 3-5-2 that we've gone for, but I suppose you could sort of say it's a 3-4-1-2 if you want to be technical about it, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Because we've obviously gone for Rodriguez to sort of be sitting in behind Knight and Sam, who are obviously going to be up front. I just think we agreed that this formation could work. Obviously, we had a bit of a disagreement on Miller and Barnett, but I think a lot of Notts fans will sort of have that. Who do you pick? But obviously, something we didn't mention as well. Wotton's missing. He's got a 1-match ban. For his
not the worst thing.
It's not the worst thing. He gets a rest, and then he'll be back ready for Hartlepool, which he's got to be up for. I think that lineup has got it's got creativity in there which, like Richard said, we've lacked. Knight, if he gets that start, he's going to be pumped. He needs to get that start. It's his first start for Notts, so yeah, interesting. And O'Brien, I mean, of recent, he's just been great. So it'd be good to see him starting. I think what we like about this lineup is we've gone, like George said, it's a 4 or a 5 in midfield, more like a 4. But Rodriguez in behind Knight and Sam, we've not actually seen Rodriguez with the chance to play a ball through to a striker like Knight, who we've heard so much about his pace. Didn't really get to see it massively, but in an away game, when Woking might be pushing up, they might be trying to play on the front foot against Notts. Actually, if Rodriguez can play that ball in behind tonight, I think, or even play off Sam, pass the ball to Sam, go past Sam, and then leave Rodriguez and Knight, because we've not seen Rodriguez really feeding a very quick player. Knowles is quick, but he's a different kind of player, isn't he? We've not seen him feeding 2 strikers either, because 9 times out of 10, well, 10 times out of 10, because I don't think he's sat behind 2 strikers yet. He's been playing in like the 4-2-3-1 sort of role, and sort of spraying it left or right. So to like the wide men that he's in the middle of.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if he does sort of play that role, how it'll work out with him supplying two front men. And especially,
let's go on
with Knight's pace.
Yeah. Let's go on to our predictions then. I'll go first this week.
Go on, lad.
I'm going Woking 0, Notts County 2. And I think Knight, he's had his little taste straight away. Within 2 minutes, turned on the edge of the box, got a shot away that wasn't a bad effort at all. I'm going 2-0. I'm going Knight to get both. And that's probably a bit of a cliche, but I'm feeling Knight's going to explode onto the scene now. I think he's going to come in even just before, because he came on just before Cal Roberts, didn't he? I think we saw an uplift straight away when Knight came on. So for me, he's going to come in, he's going to get 2, and he's going to have a great run towards the end of the season now. So for me, 2-0, Knight with both. Right, George.
Mine doesn't differ too much from yours, does it really? I've gone for a 1-0 win for Notts. Surprise, surprise. Obviously, both got a decent defence. Woking aren't freely scoring by any stretch of imagination. I suppose Notts aren't either, but, you know, hopefully, like we've discussed in this, that we start picking up a little bit of form. Knight gives the team a boost. Roberts, you know, being on the cusps of being fully match fit will give the squad a boost as well. And I can just see it being a good 3 points tomorrow. And, you know, I'm really hopeful that we can pick up those points because every point matters now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's been nice to have a weekend where the game was Friday. Really enjoyed the weekend.
Yeah.
Previews are so much nicer as well when we've got the win because we can be more positive. I remember how deflated we were after Aldershot less than a week ago. But, you know, if we can get the win, there's a few coming in here. Predictions: 2-0, Knight and Ruben. 2-1, Sam and Knight. 3-1, Enzio and Sam 2. You know, the positivity's back. If we can get...
I'm surprised no one's seeing Ellis as a goal scorer. 2 in 7. I mean, guy's on fire.
Well, it's decent, isn't it? It's decent.
For a centre back.
Remains to be seen yet if Roberts is on the bench. Definitely not going to start, I don't think. But that's ours. Oh, hang on, George. 1-0 AS.
Hey, here he is. Thanks, Will.
But yeah, you know, positivity. If we win tomorrow and say Boreham draw with Hartlepool and Sutton finally lose to Solihull and, you know, Wrexham and Torquay, they draw, anything can happen. And all of a sudden, you're looking at the table and thinking, wow, we've got 13 games left after tomorrow. If we've got that win, suddenly everything's a bit more doable with games at hand over pretty much everyone.
And we've got Saturday to look forward to as well against Hartlepool, which is going to be a mountain of a game, isn't it?
Massive. But yeah, it's been a bit of a longer preview today. We were obviously joined by Richard, Notts County Stats on Twitter. Fantastic to hear his point of view and the expected goals and things like that he's brought to the preview. If you did enjoy, let us know. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and please subscribe to us because it helps us out massively.